Project Gunpowder, a project tutorial that I've been working on for some times now. And this is the first part where we are going to work on modeling some of the assets that you can see here. Just a note is this tutorial is meant to be for beginners to and intermediate level. So if you're an absolute beginner, you just download the Blender right now. I'll try to explain everything as much as I can. But if I skipped something, please don't hesitate to leave a question in the comment. And if it requires, I will even make a special part to explain your questions. So let's get started. So I'll create a new file. There's nothing to say for me here. I will only enable screencast keys. So here on the left side of the screen, you will see every button almost every button I click. It doesn't register all buttons actually. And all the shortcuts that I'm using, so you can follow along easily. So first of all, I will just delete the cube that comes in the beginning of the scene, and I clicked X and delete after selecting the cube with the so let me show it again. I select the cube with my left mouse button, X and delete, and then I'll press Shift A and go to Mesh and Cylinder to create the base floor that we've seen before. So after creating the cylinder, and before doing anything, like I can only rotate the scene, but before doing anything else, I can still edit this cylinder on creation, and this applies to every new mesh. Now, once I move this, for instance, this goes away here. It became the move parameters now. So before I do that, and even if I Control Z, if I undo this, I cannot access these parameters anymore. So these parameters are only available once you just create an asset. Okay, so the vertices, I will increase this to be 64. So I need more details on the sides. And the radius of 1 meter, which is 2 meters in width, is, yeah, that sounds fine. The height is, this is too much. I just want this to be the platform at the bottom of the scene. So I'll just put this to 0.1, which is 10 centimeters practically. I like usually to work with centimeters, and usually the by default the unit in Blender is 1 meter per unit. So I'll come here to the scene properties and go to the units. Metric, I'll keep this to metric, but instead of length by meters, I'll set this to centimeters. And you are free to keep it or to change it to imperial if you like, prefer to use inches or feet or whatever. But this is the way I prefer it, and this will not affect your modeling or your creation or anything else. It's just a preference. So here, instead of writing 0.1 for 10 centimeters, I'll just put 10 centimeters. So save myself the process of, oops, what happened now? Saving myself the process of, oh, it reverted back, of doing the calculation in my head to, okay, 0.1 meters is 10 centimeters, so that's it. While this cylinder is still selected, I will go to the modifiers and add a bevel modifier. And this is too much, 10 centimeter, while it is already 7 centimeters. This is more than the height of the cylinder itself. So I'll put this to like 1 centimeter. Actually, let me put this to 3 centimeters. Because I want it to be like round from the edges, and I will increase the segments to 4. Looks good. And in order to make it look smooth, I will just right click and shade smooth. So see, it looks nice now. Okay, so this is the first part. Actually, it's still too thick. I press S after selecting it, of course. I press S, Z, and increase it a little bit visually just to have the look that I'm after. Yeah, I think this is fine. And I will change the amount here back to 1 centimeter. Just keep it, or 2 centimeters. Yeah, that looks fine. And in order to put a round number, which is my way to go usually, I go to item. So here it's 3.11 centimeter. I just put this to 3. Okay. Now, I will apply this scale. See, when I change the scale here on the z-axis, when I press SZ and I changed it, okay, here it changed the scale and the dimension. I want this scale always, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, I want to keep this to 1, 1, 1, and I'll explain this later. But for now, I'll just press Ctrl A, and this will bring me the Apply menu, and I will choose Scale. So apply object transform, okay? And when I did this, nothing happens in the scene. You won't see any changes. But here we just applied these parameters to 1, 1, 1. So we created the base, and let's create the barrel. So I'll press Shift A again and create another cylinder. And it kept the same parameter that we used before, which is not good for a barrel. We want it to be higher. So I go against the parameter here, open this menu, the depth, and decrease the radius. Of course, we want this to be much smaller. And I will keep this to 64. The resolution, let's say, or how many rectangles are forming the whole cylinder. So 64, this is 64. Let me show you. The default is 32 usually, and if we put this to 8, this is what we get. Okay, so 64 is a good number for the barrel. And the depth 87 is too much, I guess, what I'm after. I'm just eyeballing this, by the way. I'm not doing anything special here. Yeah, 80. Yeah, this looks like it. Anyways, we can change everything here later. We don't have to change it in parameters. So then I will press G to move it and Z to lock it on the Z axis and move it up. Okay, now if I press 1 on the numpad, and the numpad is this separate part of your keyboard that has only numbers on it, and has the enter and the minus and plus and asterisk and slash buttons. If you do not have these, there are ways to emulate numpad, and I will put a link in the description in the description to a page where on Blender XP where I explain how to enable this in your preferences. Okay, but pressing 1 on the numpad will bring me to the front view. 2 will rotate the scene. Okay, so 1 and 3 and 7 are the orthographic defaults. 1 is front view, 3 is side view, and 7 is top view. But also you can I should have mentioned this also, you can achieve this here from this gizmo. Okay, so if I press on the Z, this will take me to the top view. If I press on the Y, this will take me to the back view. Actually, the front view is minus Y in Blender, and minus X is the left, X is the right, minus X is the left. So I'll just go to the front view or the back view, doesn't matter. And in order to put this in place, I can just press G and Z to lock it on the Z axis and bring it down and eyeball it. And if I want to move things or rotate things or scale things, transform anything with slowly, with more precision, I can press shift while moving it, and it will move very slowly. So I bring it down here. Okay, and just I'm eyeballing it to put it on top of the surface. Okay, so here's one way to do it. But if you like a more precise way, which I usually do, I will come here and see this magnet shape. This is the snapping tool, and here we have snapping methods with this drop down arrow. If I click it here, usually it's to increments. So let me show you what this does. If I enable the magnet now, see it's already working, and I press G then Z and move it up, it will jump 1 meter at a time. Okay, 1 Blender unit, even though I changed it to centimeters, but this increment is not affected. It's 1 meter, it jumps 1 meter, which is not good for us in this case. It's very useful in many cases, but not this case. What I want is to sit this on top of the floor on this platform. So I want to use a vertex okay, or face would work for us. But let me go for the vertex first. So I choose vertex and press GZ and move it here. See the mouse, see this orange circle that appears? This is a vertex that this cylinder is snapping to right now, and this vertex is on the surface, is part of the base. Okay, so if I left click now, and now I can guarantee that this cylinder is sitting exactly on the top of the cylinder, and based on the height, because I locked the axis to the Z axis, based on the height of this. So let me do this again, and I will go to the wireframe mode to show you the vertex that I'm snapping to. So I'm pressing Z and holding, and I will just move my mouse to the left and then let go of the Z axis. Of the Z button, sorry, the Z button on the keyboard. I'm letting go, and now you can see the wireframe mode. So I'm selecting this cylinder. I press GZ, and it's locked now on the Z axis. And I will select this vertex here on the base and left click. This is how I did it. So I go back to the solid mode again, and I can go back from here. So this is the solid and this is the wireframe, but I like to use the shortcuts and the pie menus. It's very helpful in Blender. So I press Z again, move my mouse to the right, and let go of the Z button, and here we go back to the solid mode. So now let's continue creating the barrel itself. So after selecting the cylinder of the barrel, and let me just keep things here. I'll just select this because I have now one cylinder, two cylinder. I want to be able to see them here in the outliner easily and select them easily. So I'll just select the base, and I will come here. I can double click, or I can press while hovering the mouse over the name here in the outliner window. I'll press F2, and I will call this base. And then I will select the barrel and come here, hover over it, and press F2, and we'll call it barrel. Okay, so now I press Tab key to go to edit mode, and I will now create an edge loop here in the center. So I'll press Ctrl R, and here's the edge loop. So make sure you position it here. You see this yellow circle around, and not here or here, okay? Because we want to create the edge loop around the center of the barrel. So I will left click, and once I did that, you can see that I am being able to move this selection, this new edge loop, sorry, up and down before I continue. So the create edge loop is actually a two-phase operation. First phase is selecting where you want the edge loop to happen, and once you click it, you move to the second phase, which is putting it in the right place. So if you want to keep it in the center, you simply cancel the second phase, which is by pressing escape or right click. Okay, and this new edge loop is exactly in the center here. Okay, now I forgot this snap enabled, so I'll turn it off here because I don't need it anymore. And I'll press, while this loop is selected, I'll press S and move the mouse away to give this bulge in the body of the barrel. But in case you deselected this by mistake, okay, no problem. Just while you are in edge mode, so here's the vertex mode, so here I can select vertices, okay, and here's the edge selection mode, so here I can select faces, edges, faces, edges, and here's the face select mode, so here I can select the faces. Okay, so instead I want to be in the edge selection mode, and I will just hover here over this edge, which is part of the edge loop I want to select, and press while holding Alt. I will left click, and this will select this edge loop. Okay, so this is called, if I'm not mistaken, this is not the ring, this is the loop. Let's double check. So I'll show you also where we can achieve this operation. From the menu, select, Select loops, yeah, edge loop. So this is selecting an edge loop, and this is selecting, which one is selecting the edge ring. Yeah, so selecting with Control and Alt is the edge ring, and yeah. Anyways, we want to select this, so holding Alt, we will click on this edge, okay, to select this edge loop, and press S and enlarge, make this edge loop bigger, okay. So now we have kind of the shape of the barrel, but it's too big or too fat or too short for my taste. This is not what I'm looking for. So I press S to scale it down. But if I just scale it down, I will scale it down altogether. Well, I want to scale it down to make it thinner, let's say, okay? So I want to scale it down on all axes except for the Z axis. I want it to keep the same height, but I want it to become smaller on X and Y. So I press S and press Shift Z. So I discarded the Z axis now. And now if I scale, look what's happening. Okay, I'm not scaling on the Z, I'm only scaling on the X and Y. Okay, so this looks good for now. Okay, yeah. And I'll go back again to edit mode by pressing tab and press Ctrl B and bevel this loop. But I want it to have a curve, okay? So I will scroll my mouse wheel, okay? And you can notice here, let me just escape this, exit this. So please have a look here at this status bar in the bottom when I do the edge loop now. So Ctrl B, and notice this number that is changing now, which is the width, okay? But now when I scroll the mouse, look at the segments here, and I'm getting 8 segments, 9, 10. Can you see this on the status bar? So now it's 2 segments only, and now it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So if I apply this, actually I should have 8 because it gets smaller when you bevel it and you add more segments. So let me Ctrl Z. So see here it looks that it's fine, but once you start beveling it, I need more bulge in the center. Actually, I need to be bigger in the center. So I will Ctrl Z, undo that operation, and press S and bring it out a little bit more, make it bigger, and Ctrl B again and do the same operation. Okay, and I'm looking for, let's make this, I want the outcome of these cuts to be square-ish. Okay, so let's say 26. Yeah, that looks good. 26 segments. And I'll press either enter or left mouse button, which is more approachable, to confirm. And now we have created the shape, let's say, of the barrel. Okay, the simple shape of the barrel. So now I will just select these two guys at the top of the bottom, and I cannot see the bottom. So what to do? Well, let's work in isolate mode. So when I'm working on modeling an object, I use this a lot. On the numpad at the top, you will see the slash key. So click this and you will go into isolation mode. Okay, so we didn't delete the base now, but we just make it, we hid everything except for the barrel. Okay, so this will make it easier for us to work on all sides of the barrel. If I click that again, it will bring it back to the normal mode. Okay, so if you do not have a numpad, let's see how I can do this. So go to the view and local view, toggle local view, and see here the shortcut, which is numpad slash. Okay, so here you go, and I'll go back to edit mode by pressing the tab. So always going back and forth from edit mode to object mode is by pressing the tab. Okay, this is the shortcut. So now, and here you see in the mode, okay, I am in object and edit modes, changing here, and of course you can choose the mode from here. Okay, and another way to choose the mode is by pressing Ctrl Tab and choosing the mode from here. So it's the same as changing the view mode by pressing and holding Z, and you move to the mode you want and then let go of Z, or back to the solid mode, same way. But now instead of clicking and holding Z, you're clicking and holding Ctrl and Tab, and I will go to edit mode, and here you go, or Ctrl Tab to the left will go back to object mode. Okay, but Tab is more approachable. It's easier to select, so I would select this face here and shift select the face at the bottom of the barrel. These two faces I don't need, so I'll just press X, and faces, I will choose to delete the faces. Okay, now in order to give it the thickness, I will use a solidify modifier. So I go to the, make sure here you go to the modifier tab and go to the add modifier and choose solidify. Okay, and just this will give a thickness to the barrel. So you can increase it here. Okay, and actually this works for me because I need this slide at the edge of the barrel, which exists actually in rear barrels. Okay, let's, yeah, 3 centimeters is a good number. Okay, and the offset I will keep it to -1. So this offset here in the solidify modifier, this determines where is the thickness going. So is it going inside or outside? So -1 by default is going inside. So if I move this to 0, look what happens. And this is to 1. So 0 will make the faces to be extruded actually in both directions, outside and inside, half 50-50. And everything in between is making it towards the inside part of the faces, normals. So now it's totally going inside at -1, and which is actually what we need here. And of course, if you want the opposite, which is all going outside, you will make it to offset 1. So offset -1 is great. Okay. And now we have the barrel, well, most of it at least. So I want to apply this solidify modifier. So I will hover my mouse here over the modifier, and I would press Ctrl A. That's one way to do it, or I can click this drop down and apply it. Okay, see here this shortcut, or Ctrl A. Okay, so apply the modifier. Cool. So I don't want to this faceted look. So again, I will right click on it, and in object mode, I right click and shade smooth. Okay, and we will deal with this bad shading in a minute. So I'll press the slash on the numpad to exit the isolation mode, or I can go to view and local view and toggle local view. Okay. So how do you deal with this bad shading here? Well, it's simple. While selecting the barrel, I will go to the data panel, object data properties, okay, and expand the normals menu here and enable auto smooth. And here you go, that's it. So I want to give some chamfer here to the edge. I don't like this zero sharp edge, which has not, this is totally unrealistic thing, and I'm going kind of towards realistic creation, scene creation. So I will, instead of going here and selecting this edge loop, sorry, go to edge and select these. Instead of doing this here by pressing Ctrl B and doing the bevel here, again, I will use a modifier to do this. So while the barrel is selected, I will go to the modifier here and go to add a bevel modifier. And it's 10 centimeters, so that's too much for us. So let's see, even one is too much. But first, let me check. Here the scale is not applied. So I will press Ctrl A while hovering over the 3D view here, not here, while mouse is here, because Blender is sensitive to the mouse location. So every shortcut you're achieving, if it's on the 3D view, it will achieve this shortcut, the operation of that shortcut on the 3D view. While if it's here, it will achieve the shortcut here. So Control A here will give me to apply the transform, while Control A here will just apply the modifier. Okay, so while the mouse is over here, over this 3D view, I'll press Control A and the barrel is selected. I'll press Control A and apply the scale. And here the scale is applied, as you can see. So the amount is 1 centimeter. It's too much. Let me see, 0.2 centimeters. Maybe a bit more. 0.4. Yeah. Give it some one segment. Actually, let me put this back to 1 centimeter. 3, 4 segments. No, that's too much. Actually, I won't add any segments for now. I'll just keep it to 1 and 0.4. Yeah, that's good for now. Okay. So now I want to create the head of the barrel, which is, or the cover, if you like. So I will just go to edit mode and I will select this edge loop here. So again, make sure you're in the edge selection mode. And you can change these, by the way, from shortcuts from the keyboard. So if you press 1, I go to the vertex selection mode. If I press 2, I will go to the edge. If I press 3, I will go to the faces selection mode. Okay, and that's 1, 2, 3 not on the numpad. That's 1, 2, 3 on the main keyboard. Okay, so be careful. It's different shortcuts. So I press 2 again and select. Keep pressing this Windows button. Press on this edge here, and this will give me the edge loop. Okay, and then I will duplicate this and deselect and detach it from this object. So here's what I do. I'll press Shift D. So Shift D copies this selection, which is the edge loop. Okay, but then before I left click or do anything, I'll press Z to lock the movement on the Z axis. Okay, and then I'll press 1. So I actually copied this edge loop and I moved it up on the Z axis by 1 centimeter, because remember we changed the units on Blender to become centimeters. Okay, so why 1? Well, it could be any number. It could be 10, it could be 50, because this will make it easier for me to return it later. I don't want it to keep it in same place here, okay, because it would make it hard for me to select. So I just move it by a certain number that I know, that later if I want to put it exactly in place, I can just press GZ-1 and it will be back exactly where it was. So it's just a personal trick that makes life easier a bit for me. Okay, and now after I confirmed and it's here, it's copied, I want to detach it from this barrel object, so I want it to be a separate object. So in order to do this, I'll press, of course I'm still in edit mode, so I'll press P, which is shortcut for separate. Okay, and I want to separate the selection. Okay, so here you go, and now you see that it changed color. It's now a totally separate object. It's not part of the barrel. So if I press tab to go to the object mode, here's a separate object, and Blender gave it a name of barrel.001, which is like a copy of barrel. Okay, so I will just call it here barrel head. Okay, and now while this barrel head is selected, I will go to edit mode, select everything by pressing A, and A is selecting everything, Alt A is deselecting everything. Okay, so A is selecting every edge here because we are in edge selection mode and we're in edit mode. So if I go back to object mode and press A, it will select all objects, right? While if I'm in edit mode of one of the objects and press A, this will select all vertices or all edges or all faces. So now this object, the head of the barrel now, it's just a group of edges. We don't have any face, okay? And if I render this now, this will not show anything because it's just edges, and faces are what gets rendered. So I press F to fill it. So it's easy to remember, fill, F, okay? So F, and now it's a surface. Okay, so I can do this one way to give it the thickness. I can do this two ways. I can extrude it here, or I can go back to object mode and give it a solidify modifier, which we use on the barrel. So since we've used that already, I will show you the other way, which is by extruding the face. So I'll go back to edit mode, and I'll press E, which is shortcut for extrude, and move my mouse, and see here the faces are extruded. So I can move it up and down and determine where it goes. Okay, so I move it down here, and I will extrude it by, let's say, 1 centimeter. Let's give it 2 centimeters, actually more realistic, and press enter. So now it's extruded by 2 centimeters. Okay, and press tab again to go back to edit mode and to object mode, sorry. So now I'm in object mode, not edit mode, sorry for that, and press GZ-1. Remember the +1, the movement on 1 when we copied the edge loop. So now it's exactly in place. Okay, and we have a huge bevel here for this. I don't want that much bevel, so I will just, because remember this bevel was originally on the object that we copied the edge loop from. So by default, every part of the mesh that we separate will inherit all the modifiers here. So I'll just change this to be 0.1 maybe. Yeah, that's good. And I will give it one segment, so give it some smoothness here. Okay, so again, this is the head of the barrel, and we need another one at the bottom. So now I will select the head and the barrel and press the isolation key, which is again the slash of the key on the numpad. Okay, and I will select the head and Shift D to copy it, and Z on the Z axis, and I will move it down. But I forgot to enable the, let me undo this. I forgot to enable the snapping, and I needed to use it while I was moving, which is, how would I have to cancel the operation. Well, actually, if you do that, Shift D, Z, and I'm now inside the operation and I cannot enable the snapping anymore, pressing and holding Control will enable. It's like I have it already enabled now. Okay, so pressing and holding Control will enable the snapping. And I will snap to this vertex here, and here you go. You have now the two heads of the barrel, top and bottom. Okay, so I'll press the numpad slash now again to go back to the full view to exit the isolation mode. And now I will just come here and file, save, and I will call it Gunpowder tutorial, and save the file. So now I'm going to make the barrel hoops, or the strings you can see here on the screen. So I'm going to use the same barrel object to create these, since I already have this faces here. So I'm going to use this faces to create the hoops. I just copy them, just like we did with the barrel head, but instead of copying the edge loop, I will copy the faces loop. So I'll press Alt and click between these faces, but before I do so, I need to make sure that I am using faces to select. Face select mode, not edge select mode. So I'll switch to this here, or I can simply press number 3 to switch to the face select mode. And I'll click here with Alt, press and hold Alt and click between these two faces, or any two faces in this loop, and it will select the whole faces loop. Now I want two more loops to create the hoop. So I'm going to do this at the same time. So I will choose with Shift and Alt in order to add to the selection. So if I press only with Alt, I will replace the selection. Okay, but if I hold Alt and hold Shift at the same time and press here, this will add to the selection. So I'll select this one and this one. No, actually I will select this one and this one. And I'm only selecting 3, not the whole 6, because I want the bottom to be exactly the same as the top. So what I'm going to do is I will duplicate this and work on the hoops here, and I will just mirror them. So at the bottom, they will be exactly as they are at the top. So now after selecting these 3 edge loops or face loops, whatever, I will do exactly as I did with the edge loop here with the barrel's head. So I will press Shift D and then move the mouse, and I already copied them, but I will lock the movement now. I'm in the second phase where I'm moving the copied selection. So I press Z to lock it on the Z axis, and I will move it up by 50 this time. Okay, so it's here now. Now I will press P, which is shortcut for separate, and I will separate the selection, or I can press S. So instead of pressing P and then clicking here, I can make it very fast by pressing PS, and now I separated already this object, this hoops, to a new object. Now I'm still in edit mode, so I press tab to go back to object mode and select this object instead. And I will call them, oh, sorry, in Arabic, so it's Greek, so barrel hoops. Okay, so now I have the barrel hoops. Okay, but when I move these 50 centimeters up in edit mode, the origin of this, see this orange dot here, this origin stayed in the same place, because whenever you move something in edit mode, this origin doesn't move. Okay, it only moves when you move it in object mode, like now. Okay, so I need to go back, because I want, when I'm mirroring this to the bottom, this origin is the mirroring point, will be the mirroring point. So let's try this first. So before I change anything, I will just go here to the modifier stack, and you see here that I already have the bevel modifier from the barrel, because this object is copied from the barrel. So I will delete this, I don't need it now. And I will add a mirror modifier. And I want to mirror on the Z axis, top down axis, okay? So look where the bottom hoops are. And this origin is the center point. This is where the mirroring is happening. So in order to put these in place and mirror this exactly in the same place, I will just go back to edit mode by pressing tab, select all by pressing A, and move on the Z axis 50 centimeters down. So reverse this moving up I made before. So GZ minus 50 and back to object mode, and now these hoops are in place. And this bad shading you see here is because these faces, these objects which are the hoops, are, first, they don't have any thickness, and these faces are exactly at the same place where the barrel faces are. And to prove this, if I just select the hoops and isolate them, or go to local view by pressing the / button on the numpad, see, there is no bad shading. So the bad shading is showing only because these faces are taking exactly the same space that the faces of the barrel are taking. So what I'm going to do now is, anyways, I need this hoops to have some thickness. So I will go to the modifier properties and add another modifier, which is solidify, to give it thickness, which we used before for the barrel. So I'm going to add solidify, and I want these faces to be extruded outward, not inward. So the offset, I want it to go all the way to 1. And this is too thick. This might have been good for the head or for the barrel, but not for the hoops. I want them to be much smaller in thickness. So let's try 0.2. And I'll press Alt-A to deselect and look at it. Well, yeah, 0.2 looks good. Looks good. Okay, and now we created the hoops. But the hoops should have this overlap area and 2 bolts holding each loop in place. Okay, and actually there are many ways to do this overlap. So the way I'm going to do it is this. I will select the hoops again and go to edit mode by pressing tab, and I cannot see them clearly because the solidify modifier, since it's extruding outward, it's hiding them. So if I press / now to go to local view or isolation mode, you can see these faces inside. So here you can see that these faces can show here on the inside only because the solidify modifier is blocking the view because we extruded on the outward since the offset is set to 1. So in order to be able to see this, I will just enable this button here in the modifier, okay, in order to be able to see the final results in the edit mode. So clicking this, and this is what I get. Okay, so now this is still a 2D surface, by the way, or one-sided face. This is only the result of the solidify modifier. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, and I have a problem now with this shading, bad shading, and the result here I just noticed. I kept the default x-axis mirroring, so now there's an overlap here. So I will just remember to remove this x from the mirror modifier. So I want only to mirror on Z. Okay, so that's something to consider. Now I will go to edge selection mode or press 2 on the keyboard and select an edge. And remember, this is one edge. Okay, this is not 2 edges or an edge loop. And I will press V to separate this edge into 2 edges. So V. And look, when I press V, first phase is separating them. And now when I move the mouse, okay, I can put this edge wherever I want, sorry. Okay, so I don't want to move it right now. I want to move it in a view that doesn't corrupt this on I want to control it better by going to top view and moving on the top view. Okay, so I'll just press right click on mouse button, or I'll press escape to skip the second phase of the separation operation. Okay, now I'll press 7 on my numpad, or I'll press the Z axis here to go to top view. And where is this edge? Well, I'll press another shortcut, useful shortcut on the numpad is the comma or the dot on the keyboard, which will take you to your selection in the view. So here's the edge that I separated, and I will press G and move it out a bit, just a bit, tiny bit. Okay, and now I want to extrude this edge to overlap this part here, okay, in order to be able to put the 2 bolts later. Okay, so I'll press E and move it here. See, I'm making it overlap. And I press E again and bring it there. Okay, and now I will orbit the view to look at the results. It didn't really go exactly, but this is what you will have in real life, I guess, whenever they are making these hoops. I'm not sure that they are able to overlap them. Like from a distance you won't see any difference, but in reality there will be some difference. But anyways, if you don't like this, you can just press GZ and bring it up a little bit, and again select this one and GZ and bring it up a little bit, and same for here, GZ, bring it up a little bit, and here's you have this. And if you don't like this also here, I can just orbit it to view and press R and rotate it like that. Okay, so it's kind of like eyeballing work, but in this case, this should be enough. Okay, so I will do the same thing here, and usually these hoops are exactly in the same place. Okay, so I will select these two edges here, and I'll press V to separate them, then press escape to keep them in place. Okay, and you know, I won't go to top view now, just to show you in 3D what's going on in reality. So I'll press GX to move these on X a bit. Okay, and now I will extrude them on the Y axis this way. So E, Y, and bring them here. And I'll press GX to bring them back a bit. X, sorry, to bring them back a bit. Okay. And now again, another one. So I'll repeat this. E, X, or EY, sorry. And if by mistake you press E, then you press X while what you need is Y. You don't just press E, X again. This will extrude it again, I guess. You just press Y. So whenever you press G, for instance, in order to move something, and you press X, and then you realize that, no, actually, I want to move it on Y or on Z. You don't have to cancel the operation and do it again, or you don't have to press G again or whatever operation you're doing. You just change the axis. So if I press GX, then I press Y, what actually will happen is it will become Y instead of X. It will lock to Y axis instead of X, okay? So now I will move this back a bit on X axis, so GX, and move it back. And this one is fine, but here it's not so great in the third hoop. So I will fix that. GY, bring it here a bit, and GY, bring this guy here, and GX, bring it back a little bit, and that's it. So now I have 3 overlapping hoops on the top, and being mirrored on the bottom, the same results are happening here. So mirror modifier saves you lots of time whenever you have symmetry. You don't have to do the same job twice. You just do it once and it's repeated on the other side. It's a great modifier. Okay, so now I want to bevel it here on these corners. Okay, so I will just select these 3 edges, and be careful not to select the edges underneath. I want to select these extruded edges, the overlapping edges. Okay, and in order not to confuse you that you see here 2 edges, again, this is caused by the solidify modifier, but in order to show what's really going on, I will turn off this guy here. So this won't show solid modifier in edit view. Okay, it won't show you the results. So this is what really happened. This is just a single edge here. We have 3 edges only, not 6, okay? So now I will bevel this. So I'll press Ctrl B and nothing will happen because I want to bevel actually the vertices, not the edge, okay? So this vertices, I want to create the bevel here. So in order to bevel vertices, not edges, after pressing B, I will press V. And now I can bevel the vertices. See what's going on? And I want to give it a round, some roundness, which is not in my original model, but then I think about it now, it looks a good idea. So I will scroll my mouse up a few times. 6 segments look fine. Okay, you don't want to, whenever you have very small detail and it will not show, you don't want to add extra cuts because this will increase the size of your file. This will overcomplicate your file and your workflow for no reason. So now 6 cuts look fine. I cannot see the segments clearly, especially from a distance. If I make this, for instance, 54, okay, it might look smoother, but will this really make any difference from a distance, which is what we're going to be shooting eventually, what we're going to be rendering? No. And now I will have 54 segments here at each corner. This will increase my file size, and this will make my workflow a bit more complicated to work with. So I'll stick to the minimum acceptable, the minimum good amount, which is, I believe 6. Let's go for 8, maybe a bit smoother. So 8 is a good number here, okay? And I'll left click to confirm, and now we have these beveled vertices here. So now I will press tab back to object mode, and here we have this overlapped edges with the bevel, and solidify modifier shows here because we didn't hide it in this view. So if I press now the / on the numpad to go back, now we have our hoops completed, and all is remaining is to put the bolts in place. Okay, so I will continue this in the second part of this tutorial, how to put the bolts here in place, how to create the bolts and put them in place, and continue working on the other assets of this project. So see you later.